Yet another report following on from, I suppose, what happened in Yorkshire and how the Yorkshire Cricket Board is still dealing with all of that. We've now got English cricket, or England and Wales cricket, I suppose, to be precise, being accused of being racist and sexist.
Racist and sexist. I mean, this report, I think, was written before any evidence was taken. You only had to look at the people who were on the panel, and they were all sort of left-wing, woke, race.
They're looking
activists.
for that.
They were looking for it. And then you start looking into the report, and I looked into the summary of the report, and I think they're just cherry-picking isolated incidents, and then try to make it look that the whole of cricket is racist. Now, this is the game that I love. I think it's the best game in the world. And, you know, I've lost count of the amount of cricket matches I've attended. Big cricket matches, smaller cricket matches, Lords, Trent Bridge.
Well, it is the national sport in so many ways. When you think of the number of sort of little village teams there are, and you can sort of find yourself in a godforsaken part of Britain somewhere, and there's a cricket match going on, and you find yourself sitting down and watching it, and it's great. I
have never come across racism for decades. Yes, I've seen it in the past. And if anyone wants to read Ian Botham's autobiography, I last read it about 15 years ago, he speaks about the racist chants. He talks about banana skins being thrown onto the outfield when a black player came in. He spoke at one time at Scarborough that an old guy who used to follow Somerset home and away had a pint of beer poured over his head because he stood up and applauded another 100 by Viv Richards. This went on, but this was the 70s and the 80s. I just don't see it now. Now, there's always going to be isolated pockets of racism and sexism. It's going to be in cricket, it's going to be in football, it's going to be in rugby, any sport. But importantly, all those isolated pockets are going to be around life in general. Now, we have moved on enormously. Well, that's one of the points that people make, isn't it? That sport is a reflection of whatever society is at that particular moment in time. And people would probably agree that this country now is a lot less of a sexist place and a racist place than it may have been in the 70s. Yeah, it's a completely different country. You know, so I just don't recognise the sport that I love in this report. And Simon Heffer wrote a great article in the Telegraph yesterday, and he really, having blew that report apart. And if anyone can read that, they should read it. Yes, and it says this: cricket has been dragged into the culture wars by an activist minority. But that's more and more what we're having to deal with in this country, isn't it? We've got it with Just Stop Oil. We've now got it with the sort of the race business. We had a caller just before the news there who was of Jamaican descent. He said his parents came here in the 50s. But even he said, look, you know, there are people clearly with an agenda here in almost every aspect of our lives. They're trying to make out that something is there which it isn't, and they're trying to therefore then change the way everything's done. I watched Sir Trevor Phillips on Piers Morgan's show last night, you know, and he was saying just how much this country has changed. And if people want to think that, oh, we're such a racist, nasty country, he said, speak to your parents, speak to your grandparents, to actually what this country was like from sort of post-war, post-45. But also, if it's such a racist country, why are people from so many different races and different countries around the world clamouring to come here, because to live here? Because they couldn't be doing so if they thought it was a terribly racist place, surely. It's because it isn't. And we've made huge strides, and I think one of the least racist countries in the world. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't do more to stamp out racism, but I actually think we've been doing rather well. Don't rest on our laurels, no, but I think we're doing rather well. And I think this is a pretty fantastic country to live in, which is why so many people want to come here. Yeah, absolutely right. I'm just going to break away from you, Andrew, for a second, because we're actually going to go live to Lords right now, where Richard Tice of this very parish is watching Just Stop Oil, I think trying to somehow interfere with play in some way. Richard, very good morning to you. What's going on?
Mike, a very good morning to you. And extraordinary, just at the beginning of the second over of play, two jerks from Just Stop ran onto the middle of the pitch and started to throw their orange paint. A wonderful sight. The England wicketkeeper, Bairstow, rushed over to one of them, picked him up before he knew what was happening, and literally carried the jerk off the pitch.
Brilliant.
A huge round of applause from the whole crowd, were utterly delighted by the right way to treat these fools. So I just thought I'd pass that news on to you. And so their disruption only lasted about 5 minutes. The groundsmen were prepared for this, rushed on, brushed away the paint, and play, I'm delighted to confirm, has recommenced. Stuart Broad is bowling.
Tremendous. And very, very good news that England cricket is able to do what the police are incapable of doing, which is simply removing these pests wherever they appear. Absolutely right. The England cricketers not going to take any nonsense. If there's any disruption, they just pick them up and carry them off the pitch. And I think, as you say, policemen and women up and down the country could learn a great lesson
from this. This is the way to deal with them. Pick them up and take them off and carry them off to the cells.
Brilliant. Absolutely fine. And lock them in with the police horses or something like that. Fantastic. Enjoy the rest of the day, Richard. Thank you for the update. We're looking at the picture as we speak there of the paint being thrown around, this ridiculous sort of orange powder that these Just Stop Oil... And just as we were speaking there, Andrew, of Just Stop, it's all part of the same nonsense, isn't it? These people who are apparently so unhappy with the way that things are that they must disrupt them. I noticed they didn't disrupt Glastonbury, which is a very ironically, fortress-like place where if you haven't got enough money to get in, they will stop you from getting in. But it's all right if you want to come to this country. And they all support the fact that people can come to this country without being stopped from coming in, without any fear or favour, because they all support refugees. Refugees are welcome here, they were all singing, while they were inside this compound, pretty much manned by armed security. Yes. But apparently they're not welcome at Glastonbury, though, unless they can buy a ticket.
Well, it reminded me, I think it was Gwyneth Paltrow, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who wanted to join all these Extinction Rebellion protesters in London. So she decided to fly, probably first class from Los Angeles to London to do it. Bunch of hypocrites.
Yeah. I mean, well, Plank of the Week this week, I think, is going to feature some of these characters. Holly Willoughby amongst them, who took a helicopter to Glastonbury, who's always talking about how she has, you have to be kind to the planet and you have to be good to the planet and you have to be nice about how you live your life. But she's off in a helicopter down to a big 12-hour party in Glastonbury. Unbelievable. Speaking of saving the planet, I see that our good friend, the Archbishop of Wokebury's been at it again. Justin Welby, the Church of England, apparently going to sell off all their oil and gas shares to, in their words, protect God's creation. I'm just glad to see they're still calling it God's creation. I thought they might have changed their view of Christianity,
Well, that wouldn't have surprised me either. Isn't this the Justin Welby who was once an oil executive?
He was indeed, for BP,
and he worked there for quite a number of years, and one would assume that he has some pension accrued there. So I wonder if he's decided, in all good conscience, just to reject his pension.
Well, perhaps he could give it away to the people who are dying and suffering in very, very dangerous parts of the world. Who can say?
He'd probably give it away to Just Stop Oil or Extinction
Rebellion. It's true, though, but we see all of the problems that are kind of ramping up at the moment. The water one is one. We've also got the energy prices and the electricity and the gas problems that we've got. Much of the cost of all of this stuff and the anti-pollution is driven by net zero. And we've seen in the past just, 48 hours, that Rishi Sunak's going to put more net zero levies on our energy costs. They're being urged to reduce another green levy which has been put on, and they don't seem to want to stop. And now, of course, people are warning them that, well, you might not hit your net zero target. Well, so what? Would be what I would say.
Well, this is the Rishi Sunak who's tried to say, come on, folks, we're all in this together.
Of course we are.
We'll all pull through.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the man. I mean, he was extremely rich himself. He was rather successful. Oh, it was successful in business.
Yeah.
Fine, that's fine. But he also had the advantage of marrying the heiress of a multi-billionaire,
the richest woman in India, who was, I believe, richer than the Queen.
Yes.
That's the former Queen.
So their combined wealth is more than the king's.
Yes.
I'm sorry, they wouldn't have a clue. And you're talking about taking a helicopter, Holly Willoughby, to Glastonbury.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the Rishi Sunak who, during the leadership contests last year, said how his children were so concerned about climate change. What are you going to do about climate change, Daddy?
Yeah.
And this is the man who takes a helicopter from here to Kent.
Right. Well, why wouldn't you? See, I don't have a problem with people doing stuff like that. They just shouldn't be preaching to us not to.
That's my problem. I couldn't give a damn whether he takes
I don't care how rich he is. I don't care how many helicopters he takes, unless he's charging it to the taxpayer.
I believe he pays for it himself.
Yeah,
it's the hypocrisy of it. That's what annoys me.
What I do care about is the constant and sort of just assumption, really, that we, the taxpayer, will just pay for everything. We're going to pick this up later with Alex Phillips, but the ridiculousness of saying it's going to cost us £169,000 or something similar to remove each migrant, to send them to Rwanda. Why does it cost that?
Yeah, exactly.
You can fly to Rwanda for £300.
So where's the breakdown of the figures?
Yeah, there just simply isn't one. Absolutely isn't one. So let's talk a bit about the water system. What's it like where you are? Have you got Yorkshire Water where you are?
We've got Yorkshire Water where we are.
Right. Does that work in any way, shape or form?
It appears to. We certainly seem to get perfectly decent water coming through the taps when we require it.
Have you got a hosepipe ban in place?
Not yet.
Because most of South East England has.
Well, we're rather fortunate because of huge reservoirs in West Yorkshire, and there's pipeline. I mean, I don't know if viewers and listeners remember, but a good 20, 30 years ago, I mean, Yorkshire water was in a complete mess. It's improved a lot since then. And there's pipelines there, so we in East Yorkshire are relatively dry compared to the West, where it rains a heck of a lot.
Right.
And therefore, all this water can be piped through to us. So we don't seem to have problems with hose pipe bans. But I think the water companies in general, and of course Thames Water in particular, I mean, as I see it, they haven't been interested in building new reservoirs. No. They haven't been interested in fixing leaks. No. They've been interested in almost asset stripping these companies, paying huge dividends.
And bonuses.
And they haven't invested in the business. And as you said earlier, Mike, guess who's going to pick up the tab? It's going to be us again.
Well, again, it's going to be us, and that's the thing that I think makes a lot of people pig sick. Breaking news now, Just Stop Oil protest does stop the second Ashes test, but Jonny Bairstow carried one of the protesters off. We'll see if they're still...
Good for Jonny.
I know, absolutely brilliant. But, of course, the tragic thing for cricket would be if he sort of injured himself somehow while he was doing that.
Yes.
And then that has a knock-on effect on the actual game. You know, these people are an absolute menace, aren't they?
I wasn't shocked that it happened, though.
No.
I mean, I didn't know anything about it because I was in the studio with you, but when you said you were going to your new cricket correspondent, Richard Tice.
Yes.
I wasn't shocked.
He's very good value for money, is Richard Tice.
Because they did it at the snooker, didn't they?
Yeah, they did it at the snooker.
And I'll bet anything that when Wimbledon starts, they'll do it at Wimbledon as well.
Well, they'll probably try, because they'll see that as another sort of posh event. But they're all posh. I mean, this Phoebe woman keeps popping up, the one with the pink hair. She's been arrested almost at every sort of slow march that there's been. Unbelievable. But, Andrew, listen, good to see you. We're going to be talking to you later on as well, because later on this week, Plank of the Week comes out. Andrew's going to be a guest on the panel. There's so much to talk about, so many people to put on there. We can't wait to get going.